The amphitheater of the Galactic Military Academy fell silent as Admiral Vexthor entered, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the soft blue light of the chamber. The graduating class of officer candidates straightened in their seats, representing dozen different species from across known space. They had expected another dry lecture on tactical theory. What they got instead would change their understanding of warfare forever. Today, Vexthor began, his translator converting his crystalline resonances into standard galactic common. I will tell you about the day the Kraxan Empire learned to fear a species that, by all accounts, should have been insignificant. His outer shell shifted, displaying the iridescent patterns that indicated deep emotional resonance. I will tell you about the humans. A ripple of murmurs crossed the chamber. The younger officers had heard stories, of course, every species in the galaxy had heard of the humans by now. But few remained who had witnessed firsthand the events that had earned humanity its fearsome reputation. I commanded the 7th Imperial Fleet during the initial invasion of their Proxima colony, Vexthor continued. We had conquered 17 systems before reaching human space. Our technology was centuries ahead of theirs. Our ships could reduce planets to ash. Our soldiers were bred for combat, enhanced by the finest bioengineering in the galaxy. We expected the campaign to last no more than 3 planetary rotations. The Admiral's crystalline form pulsed with a darker hue. We were wrong. So catastrophically wrong. He activated the chamber's holographic display, showing the Proxima system as it had appeared 15 cycles ago. The colony had a population of merely 20,000. Their defensive fleet consisted of 12 primitive ships, barely more than armed transport vessels. We arrived with 300 warships and 200,000 troops. The display shifted to show the initial battle. Their fleet met us at the system's edge. We thought them suicidal. Perhaps they were, by conventional metrics. But Commander Rashmi Patel, their fleet leader, had studied our previous campaigns. She knew she couldn't win by traditional means. So she didn't try. The hologram showed the human ships appearing to retreat, drawing the Kraxan fleet into the system's dense asteroid field. We pursued, of course. Why wouldn't we? Our shields could withstand any impact from mere space rocks. Vexthor's voice carried a hint of bitter amusement. We didn't realize until too late that they had spent months hollowing out hundreds of asteroids, filling them with mining explosives and nuclear warheads. The hologram depicted the chaos that followed, massive chains of explosions, carefully calculated to create devastating debris fields that overwhelmed even Kraxan shielding. We lost 60 ships in the first hour. Another 40 were crippled. But surely, we thought, this was their only trick. They had exhausted their strategy. We still outnumbered them vastly. The display zoomed in on Proxima Colony itself. The ground battle proved even more humbling. Lieutenant Commander Jamal Rahman commanded the colony's defense force, just 3,000 soldiers against our army of 200,000. But they had prepared their ground well. The hologram showed the colony's seemingly simple defense structures. They had built their walls not to withstand our weapons, but to collapse in precisely calculated ways, creating killing grounds and ambush zones. They had studied how our troops moved in formation and designed their entire colony layout as one massive trap. Vexthor moved through the gathered officers, his crystalline form now pulsing with intense colors. Their soldiers fought with primitive projectile weapons and improvised explosives against our plasma rifles and power armor. But they had learned to target weak points we didn't even know we had. They used their colony's atmospheric processors to create artificial storms that disrupted our sensors. They turned their mining equipment into weapons that could tear through our strongest armor. The Admiral paused before a young Kraxan officer candidate. Tell me, what would you do if you faced an enemy with vastly superior technology and numbers? The candidate's response was immediate: surrender, to preserve lives and resources. Logical. Reasonable. Wrong. Vexthor turned back to the main platform. The humans never considered surrender. When we breached their walls, they fought street by street. When we destroyed their power grid, they fought in darkness. When we cut off their supply lines, they ate ration bars and recycled water, but they kept fighting. For 30 days, they held us back. 30 days of constant combat, against a force that should have overwhelmed them in hours. The hologram showed the final battle for the colony's central command. Commander Rahman and his remaining forces, barely 500 by then, had retreated to their central bunker. We had them surrounded, outnumbered, outgunned. We offered terms of surrender. Their response was to trigger hidden demolition charges that collapsed multiple transit tunnels, trapping a significant portion of our forces underground. Vexthor's form dimmed slightly. That was when we received word that the remnants of their fleet, led by Commander Patel, had somehow regrouped and were launching a counterattack. They had gathered the debris from their asteroid trap, fitted makeshift engines to the largest pieces, and were now directing this artificial meteor storm toward our ground positions. The Admiral let the hologram fade. We had to retreat. A force of 300 warships and 200,000 troops was driven back by 20,000 colonists and their makeshift weapons. But more importantly, we learned something crucial about humans that day: they do not fight like other species. They do not accept the logical limitations of their situation. They do not follow expected patterns of warfare. And they never, ever give up. The chamber remained silent as Vexthor concluded, "Remember this lesson, young officers. Technology, numbers, even tactical superiority, these things matter less than you think. The humans taught us that the most dangerous enemy is the one who refuses to accept defeat, who will rewrite the rules of engagement, who will turn everything, even their own colony's destruction, into a weapon." His final words resonated through the chamber. We thought we were invincible until we met humanity. They proved that determination and ingenuity can overcome any advantage. The Empire lost that war not because humans were stronger or more advanced, but because they simply refused to lose. The defeat at Proxima changed everything, Admiral Vexthor continued, his crystalline form shifting to deep blues and purples. But it was what came after that truly shook the Empire's confidence. I speak of the Ghost Fleet and Admiral Kai Tanaka. The holographic display flickered to life again, showing a vast stretch of space near the Helios Nebula. After Proxima, the Empire assembled its largest battle fleet, 700 warships under the command of our most experienced admiral, Zexlar the Unfailing. Our mission was simple: crush the human resistance once and for all. Several officer candidates leaned forward, their various anatomies tensing with anticipation. The Ghost Fleet campaign was legendary, but few knew the true details. We found the human fleet near the edge of the nebula, barely 50 ships, all showing battle damage from previous encounters. Admiral Tanaka commanded from the HSS Defiant, an old carrier that had been retrofitted with experimental technology. We thought they were trapped, their backs against the stellar winds that made the nebula impassable. The hologram zoomed in on the human fleet. Zexlar offered terms, not surrender, but exile. The humans could retreat to their home system and remain there, under Imperial supervision. Admiral Tanaka's response was unprecedented. She ordered her fleet to charge directly into the nebula. Vexthor's crystalline surface rippled with remembered amazement. We thought them mad. The nebula's radiation would tear their ships apart. But as we watched, something impossible happened. Their ships disappeared. The display showed the human fleet seemingly fading from view as they entered the nebula's outer boundary. We later learned that human scientists had developed a form of adaptive shielding that could bend radiation around their ships. They couldn't achieve true invisibility, but inside the nebula's constant electromagnetic storms, they were effectively ghosts. What followed was 3 months of psychological warfare that broke the greatest fleet the Empire had ever assembled. Tanaka had turned the nebula into her hunting ground. Her ships would emerge from the storms without warning, strike with devastating precision, and vanish before we could respond. The hologram displayed a series of attacks, human vessels appearing seemingly out of nowhere, launching devastating strikes at critical systems, then disappearing back into the nebula's chaos. They had studied our ship designs extensively. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage with minimal expenditure of their limited ammunition. But it wasn't just tactical precision, it was psychological warfare of the highest order. Tanaka's ships would broadcast on open channels, taunting our crews. They would play human music, war songs from their history, across our communication frequencies. Some ships reported hearing human laughter in the static of the nebula. Our crews began to crack under the constant stress of waiting for the next attack. The Admiral gestured to a particularly dramatic holographic sequence. In one infamous incident, they used the nebula's radiation to project enormous images of ancient human sea creatures, what they called ghost ships, onto our sensors. Imagine being a crew member, already on edge, when your sensors show a gigantic ethereal creature emerging from the storms. We lost 15 ships to panic and friendly fire in that attack alone. But the true genius of Tanaka's strategy wasn't in the attacks themselves. It was in how she used our own strength against us. The larger our fleet, the more resources we had to commit to protecting our supply lines. The more ships we sent to hunt her, the more targets she had to choose from. We were bleeding resources and morale with every passing day. Vexthor's form pulsed with a mix of colors that indicated both admiration and remembered frustration. After 2 months, ships began deserting. After 3 months, with a third of our fleet destroyed or disabled and another third having fled, Zexlar the Unfailing lived up to his name one final time. He ordered a full retreat rather than face total destruction. The Admiral moved to the center of the chamber, his voice growing more intense. But here is the detail that truly demonstrates human ingenuity. We later discovered that by the end of the campaign, Tanaka had only 27 operational ships remaining. 27 ships had driven away a fleet nearly 30 times their size. The hologram showed the aftermath, the nebula quiet once more, with the debris of Imperial ships scattered across its borders. When asked later about her strategy, Admiral Tanaka said something profound. She said, "In space, no one can see your bluff." She had understood something fundamental about warfare that we had forgotten in our technological superiority: fear is a weapon more powerful than any battleship. The Ghost Fleet campaign changed Imperial military doctrine forever. It taught us that superiority in numbers and technology means nothing against an enemy who can turn your own psychology against you. The humans didn't just defeat our fleet, they made us defeat ourselves. But perhaps most importantly, Vexthor concluded, his form settling into a serious, deep blue, it demonstrated another aspect of human warfare that we had failed to grasp: they are masters of adaptation. Every defeat, every setback, only serves to make them more dangerous. They learn, they evolve, they find new ways to fight. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just a military campaign, it was a message to the galaxy: humanity would not be conquered through conventional means. The chamber remained silent as the hologram faded, the officer candidates processing the implications of this legendary campaign. One brave soul raised an appendage. "Admiral, is it true that the humans still use recordings from the Ghost Fleet campaign to train their own officers?" Vexthor's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been amusement. "They do. But not for the reasons you might think. They study it not to learn about victory, but to remember that desperation breeds innovation. In their own words, necessity is the mother of invention. It's a lesson we paid dearly to learn." Admiral Vexthor's crystalline form shifted to a contemplative amber hue as he accessed another set of memories. The holographic display transformed to show a massive underground facility beneath the ruins of a human city. While the Ghost Fleet haunted the nebula, another kind of warfare was being waged beneath the surface of occupied Earth. This is the story of what humans call the Brisbane Gambit, though that name hardly captures the audacity of what transpired there. The hologram focused on a sprawling subterranean complex. The Empire had taken Earth's major cities, but we never fully controlled what lay beneath them. Unknown to us, director Naomi Singh and her team of engineers had transformed Brisbane's old mining tunnels into the largest covert research facility in human history. We had dismissed human technology as primitive, Vextor continued, his voice carrying a note of professional admiration. Their ships still used chemical propulsion. Their weapons were based on crude projectiles. Their communications relied on easily intercepted radio waves. But we failed to recognize something crucial about human engineers: they don't see limitations, they see possibilities. The display showed hundreds of human scientists and engineers working in cramped conditions, surrounded by salvaged cracks in technology. Director Singh had orchestrated a daring plan. Every time the Empire won a battle, human salvage teams would follow, recovering damaged cracks in technology. Every piece of wreckage, every destroyed drone, every broken weapon was catalogued and transported to Brisbane. But they didn't simply reverse engineer our technology. That would have been too obvious, too predictable. Instead, they did something that demonstrated the unique human capacity for lateral thinking. They looked for ways to combine their primitive technology with our advanced systems in ways we had never imagined. The hologram showed human engineers attaching their primitive chemical rockets to salvaged cracks in gravity drives. They discovered that while their chemical propulsion was inefficient by our standards, when combined with our gravity manipulation technology, it created an entirely new form of drive system. Their hybrid drives could achieve speeds we had thought impossible, using a fraction of the energy our ships required. They applied this same principle to weapons technology, Vextor continued, as the display showed human scientists working on various hybrid weapons. They found that their primitive projectile weapons, when enhanced with our energy field technology, could penetrate our strongest shields. Why? Because our defenses were designed to repel energy weapons, not physical objects moving at relativistic speeds. The Admiral's form pulsed with intense colors as he reached the heart of the story. But Director Singh's true masterpiece was what her team called Project Echo. They had been studying our quantum communication network, the backbone of Imperial command and control. Instead of trying to crack our encryption, they found a way to infect it with a hybrid virus, part digital code, part quantum entanglement. The genius was in its simplicity. They used our own network's quantum nature against us. Every time we transmitted a message, the virus would replicate itself across quantum states. The more we tried to coordinate our forces, the more we spread the infection. Within days, our entire communication network was compromised. The hologram showed the cascading failure of Imperial communications across occupied territories. But here's what made it truly brilliant: the virus didn't destroy our network. It did something far more insidious. It introduced subtle errors into our targeting systems, navigation computers, and sensor arrays. Ships would arrive slightly off course. Weapons would miss by tiny margins. Sensor readings would be just inaccurate enough to cause doubt. By the time we realized what was happening, the virus had spread too far. The only way to cleanse the network would have been to shut it down completely, which would have crippled our entire military operation. We were forced to continue using compromised systems, never quite sure if we could trust our own technology. Vextor turned to face his audience directly. Consider the psychological impact. Every commander, every ship captain, had to question every piece of data they received. Were those sensor readings accurate? Could they trust their targeting computers? Was that friendly ship really where it appeared to be? The Empire's greatest strength, our technological superiority, had become a source of constant uncertainty. But the true marvel of Project Echo wasn't its military impact, the Admiral continued. It was how it demonstrated human adaptability. Director Singh's team had taken their greatest weakness, their technological inferiority, and turned it into an advantage. They couldn't match our technology, so they found a way to make our technology work against us. The hologram showed the aftermath of the Brisbane operation, Imperial forces in disarray, unable to coordinate effectively, while human resistance forces struck with increasing precision. When we finally discovered the location of the Brisbane facility, Director Singh's team had already evacuated, taking their research with them. But they left behind a message, encoded in our own quantum network: the more complex the system, the more ways it can fail. Vexthor's form settled into a deep, thoughtful blue. It was a lesson the Empire learned too late. We had built our military might on the assumption that advanced technology would always triumph over primitive weapons. The humans proved that innovation isn't about having the best technology, it's about using whatever technology you have in ways your enemy never expected. The Brisbane Gambit marked the beginning of the end for the Imperial invasion. Not because humans had better weapons or stronger ships, but because they understood something fundamental about warfare that we had forgotten: the most dangerous enemy is the one who can turn your own strength into a weakness. The underground resistance. Vexthor's crystalline form shifted to a deep purple as the hologram displayed urban landscapes across occupied Earth territories. While Brisbane's engineers fought with technology and the Ghost Fleet haunted the nebula, another force emerged that would prove equally devastating: the civilian resistance network known as the Whisper Chain. Led by former logistics manager turned resistance leader Aidan O'Malley, the Whisper Chain demonstrated that every human, regardless of their role, could become a weapon against us. These weren't soldiers or scientists, they were shopkeepers, farmers, maintenance workers, and office clerks. The hologram showed seemingly innocent civilian activities that concealed coordinated resistance efforts. O'Malley understood something fundamental about occupation: an army relies on infrastructure. You can't fight a war without supplies, communication, and intelligence. The Whisper Chain turned every occupied city into a logistical nightmare. They developed a system of ordinary sabotage so subtle that we couldn't distinguish between actual mechanical failures and deliberate interference. Maintenance workers would slightly miscalibrate our equipment. Transport operators would deliver supplies to wrong locations. Communication technicians would introduce minor errors into transmission systems. The display showed the cumulative effect of these small actions: entire supply chains disrupted, military operations delayed, resources misallocated. No single act was serious enough to trigger a major response, but together they created a constant drain on our resources. We were fighting shadows. How do you combat an enemy that looks exactly like the civilian population you're trying to govern? But O'Malley's true genius was in information warfare. The Whisper Chain created an underground communication network using methods so primitive we initially didn't even recognize them as communication. They used everything from graffiti patterns to the arrangement of laundry on clotheslines to pass messages. They studied our patrol patterns, our command structures, our security protocols, not to attack them directly, but to find the tiny gaps, the small inefficiencies they could exploit. Every civilian became a potential intelligence gatherer, every routine interaction a chance to collect information. The Dawn Treaty. The hologram shifted to show a grand meeting hall on neutral territory, the signing of what would become known as the Dawn Treaty. Vexthor's form brightened as he reached the conclusion of his narrative. The Empire had never known defeat before encountering humanity. We had conquered 17 species, all more technologically advanced than humans. Yet here we were, our military in disarray, our communication networks compromised, our supply lines in chaos, facing an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each defeat. The Dawn Treaty negotiations revealed the final lesson humanity would teach us. Led by Ambassador Priya Patel, the humans didn't demand unconditional surrender or heavy reparations. Instead, they proposed something unprecedented: a partnership. The hologram showed Ambassador Patel addressing the Imperial Council. Her words still resonate today: we don't want to defeat the Empire. We want to help it evolve. Your technology combined with our innovation. Your strength with our adaptability. Your order with our creativity. The Council was stunned. Here was a species that had every right to demand revenge, instead offering cooperation. It challenged everything we thought we knew about warfare and victory. Ambassador Patel explained it simply: humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight, it's our ability to turn enemies into allies. Vexthor's form pulsed with bright, complex patterns as he concluded. The Dawn Treaty didn't just end a war, it transformed the galaxy. Human innovation combined with imperial technology has led to advancements we never imagined possible. Their universities now host students from across the Empire, teaching not just technology but creativity, adaptability, and lateral thinking. But perhaps the most important lesson, the Admiral's voice softened, was what humanity taught us about strength. True power isn't about superior technology or numbers. It's not even about military might. It's about the ability to adapt, to innovate, and ultimately, to transform defeat into opportunity. The hologram faded, leaving the chamber in thoughtful silence. You are the first class of the new Joint Military Academy, humans learning imperial tactics, imperial officers studying human innovation. Remember these stories not as tales of victory in defeat, but as lessons in the true nature of strength. Because in the end, Vexthor concluded, his crystalline form settling into a bright, clear blue, humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating the Empire. It was showing us a better way to exist in this galaxy. They taught us that the strongest civilizations aren't those that never fall, but those that know how to rise again, learn, and grow stronger from their defeats. The chamber erupted in appreciative gestures from all species present, human applause mixing with crystalline resonance and various other forms of approval. As the young officers filed out, many of them, human and alien alike, seemed to stand a little taller, their perspectives forever changed by the tale of how a supposedly primitive species had transformed an empire not through conquest, but through innovation, adaptation, and an unwavering refusal to accept defeat.